Hello, everybody.
Hey, Andre.
How are we doing?
How's it going?
Good. So we're Breakout Group 3, and hopefully you should see a screen coming up, and these are the items that we're going to go through just to set and remind you what we're talking about is we're going to go through these items. First, I want to spend about 10 minutes, if it takes that long, to talk about are these items, just review each one and make sure, is it what we were thinking, or do we need to add, subtract? What's the intent? And then secondly, after we do that, we'll kind of rank them. We need to, what's the top priority of these items relative to the category we're in? And then as we rank them, we'll do a little voting. And then after that, we'll come back and look at where we are and just make sure that, now you've ranked them, is this really what we want to say? And then as John L. said, I need one of you to kind of speak for the group when we get back together about what is the rankings and what was the committee sentiment and why we put them that way. So any questions before we get started?
This is Bob. I've got a request if possible. Is there any way everybody can introduce themselves and just let me know where you're from? And anyway, I'm Bob Carroll. I'm with IBW 48 and the Columbia Pacific Bills.
That'd be great. Christine?
Christine Chen Ryan. I'm a small business owner, but I'm representing Prosper Portland Council on Economic and Racial Equity.
Pastor Hennessy?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is J.W. Matt Hennessy. I'm the pastor of Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church here in Portland. And I've worked in public administration, private business, and my office is not far from where we're talking about.
Art?
Yes, I'm Art Cortez, owner of Art Cortez Construction, the Harbor Company, and I also represent Latino Built. I've been in the construction industry for 35 years, going on 36. Not all fun, but got to know business. Nice to meet you all.
Mike?
Good evening, everybody. Mike Baker. I'm the project manager for the owner's representative team that was selected by ODOT back in 2018 to come on board and help them manage the overall delivery of the project. So I work very closely with Megan and Brendan, Andre and others on the team to just help ODOT lift this big project up and move it forward. So happy to be spending the evening with you.
Katie?
I'm Katie Whittier, also part of the owner's rep team. And my role here is, you're looking at my screen, so I'll be doing some annotating, and I'm also recording this breakout session so that it will be published later online.
And Carolyn, you got to introduce yourself again.
Yeah, no problem. Carolyn Henniges. I am ODOT's resident engineer to help manage the construction, particularly the CMGC contract that we're trying to get going. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm Andre Baugh. I'm the DBOJT lead for the owner's rep team, and I'm a sub-consultant under Group AGB, my firm, and I'm, along with Amber, doing the DBOJT component of this project.
Thank you. It's very nice to meet everybody.
Yeah, good call. What I thought, instead of me reading, I just want to go one by one. We've got 8 items, so I'm going to give everybody about 30 seconds. Hopefully you've seen these before, so look at number 1 and see if there's anything we need to change, if it's meeting the intent of what you think this says, or do we need to just make any modifications to number 1? And everybody can see number 1 on their screen?
Yes.
Do we need to raise our hands, or can we just speak out? Tell us.
why don't you just speak out? If yeah,
Okay.
that means I got to do more work. I got to figure out how to see your hand somehow.
Okay, we don't want you to do that. This one, the concern I have is that, and I've said this in some other meetings before, is that it's important that there is an understanding of what ODOT can do and what is in its lane, and what it can do to partner with others to make things happen. And in number one, when we talk about infuse the community to bring back some of the local businesses, requires thinking outside the box and putting it on paper. Part of my thought is either an addendum to number one or something separate, which basically says that ODOT would partner with other entities to do that second half of what this sentence says. Because truthfully, I don't believe it's in ODOT's scope to be able to do the latter half of that.
Okay. And
go
ahead.
That's a good point, Matt. So can you answer this, ODOT folks? Can you answer that question that Matt just raised? Is it in ODOT's lane or authority to be able to do that? Because if it isn't, then why, yeah, we do need to reword it.
Okay. And just for context, again, this session is about what can ODOT COAC do to hold the prime contractor accountable. And so when you look at that, the COAC's not going to do this part to bring back the community. And, realistically, ODOT's not going to bring back the community also. I mean, they're going to build a project, but they're not in the redevelopment business. So if you feel you want to modify that or something, I think the prime contractor is not going to bring back, the party here, the prime contractor is not going to bring back the community either. I mean, they're going to bring back contractors and people maybe from the community, but not businesses. Local businesses would be contractors. And if you contextualize it that way, maybe it works, and maybe people, but if you're thinking longer term, that's probably not in a purview.
So I'm sorry, go ahead, Christy.
No, go ahead, man.
Part of the situation, I think, is, Andre, on that one, then basically all of number one is aspirational, but it's not something that is in the scope of work for the contractor. And what I know is number one is very sensitive to a number of people in the Black community. And so that's why I'd kind of like to ask somehow how we not obviously toss that out, but how do we, and maybe it's in another group that's is everybody dealing with the same number, 8? Are the other groups seeing the same thing we're seeing?
No, other groups have different, we broke out 3 different sections. So there are 3, if you remember, 3 different sessions. There's one group about changing the culture to address people of color's experience on the work site. And then group 2 is disaggregate DB and workforce goals.
Right. I guess, so my thought would be here on number one, it's important that while in this moment we can't deal with how this needs to be handled, it seems to me that this is an important issue that needs to set aside, and we need to be clear that this is not something that we can hold the contractor to from a performance standpoint.
Okay.
But somehow this is a message for ODOT.
Yeah,
I have a question.
Cortez. This is our Cortez. I understand the purpose of number one, and I think that's wouldn't that be your HAP committee that would be working specifically with that number one statement? Can somebody elaborate a little bit more on that?
This is Christine. I have a question. Does ODOT have equivalent to a community benefits agreement? That's one question I have. Between ODOT, let's say the construction manager, general manager, and well as some community groups. So if there is a community benefits agreement, maybe some of that could be in there. Other than that, I can see where the prime contractor can subcontract, as I think was mentioned before, about subcontracting to some of the local vendors to infuse some money into the local businesses. And I think that's probably what it was meant, is to use the local businesses to buy products and services to infuse the money, into the community.
Okay. No, ODOT does not have a CBA on this project. And so I think to your latter point, yeah, if it's intended for that. Art, can you restate your question again?
This seems like this statement looks like it would be something you guys would be working on in the HAAB group, because it is not the purpose of these breakouts to be focused on contract statements that are focused in how do we create workplace culture and benefits.
Yeah.
I'm not
this
trying
is
to
about
challenge anybody. I'm just
Yep.
I'm just trying to say that we can get stuck on all of these for quite some time if we're focused on the micro layers of each one of these questions or statements.
Okay, I think for this one, why don't we just set this one number one aside? Because I think to Christine's standpoint, when you look back at we look at number two, it does get to where at the end of the day the money goes, and this may be one that we, to Matt's point, we want to keep focused on, but holding the contractor, ODOT, and you, the COAC, getting into that specifics may not be within the realm of the scopes. For the COAC, certainly not. For ODOT and for the contractor, maybe not also. But it's something that's important to the community.
I think we can, though, by just a simple fact, maybe combining 1 and 2, is to put something in there that the prime contractor will contract for goods and services for the local BIPOC communities first. And I think that's probably what it was meant to do. And I think we could put something in there, to make that happen, to infuse money back into the local community. So I think it is doable in that aspect.
Is everybody okay in changing number 1 to talk about the contractor, getting it more focused on what the contractor can do?
Here's, first of all, I appreciate what Christine is saying. My thought is there's so much emotion around number 1. My thought is recommendation would be set number 1 aside, like you suggested, and definitely combine 2 and 3, which basically gets to what I think Christine was trying to get to, and that is, how do you account for how wealth and or contract money, I can't say it any better, is actually getting to Black people, because the BIPOC community, because I think the heart of number 2 and the heart of number 3 is really trying to say, are Black people succeeding, and is money or opportunity flowing to them in an important and serious way? And I think, I'm not sure where Art was going with the statement he made, but it seems to me the question is, I don't think that this group can deal with number 1, but somebody needs to be dealing with number 1.
Yes, they have the HAAB group, which is designed to communicate about the work with the albino community, and that I think that belongs to them, not in this discussion. If we're going to focus on creating closure or any kind of solving of grievances that happened in the past, it would be more beneficial to put the number one in their hands and let them decide what's best. It'd be, I have many ways to look at that, and I completely agree with your statement, Pastor, with 2 and 3 being combined. And that would meet the purpose of, I'm sorry, what the message that spoke before you. I completely agree with you.
Christine.
Christine, are you okay with Christine and Bob? Are you okay if we're talking about not losing focus on number one, but setting it aside and looking at combining 2 and 3 and refocusing it about local?
I think that makes sense.
Christine?
Yeah, we can set it aside, but if we're going to put it to the HAAC, I would like to have us make a recommendation if that's what they ultimately decide to do. But yes, I think we can put it aside because I see everything is connected. And I think all of you guys know that. So, so I think maybe rewording it, or after the end of the conversation, we can look at it again.
Okay.
Because I want COAC, a voice to be heard very strongly that this is what we mean. So I just don't want to, push too much aside. Thank you.
Absolutely. We can come back to that. And, what is the intent we want to see out of HAB when they look at this question?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So 2 and 3, to Christine's point, how do we tell the contractor, from what I'm paraphrasing Christine, that they need to buy local products and use local firms from the BIPOC community?
That's the, can I add, Christine, would you be okay?
Yes.
Okay, my thought is that that's the primary way that we would hope they get their work done. There are sometimes in contracting, as we all know, you run across things that you're looking for, and it's not, something that the BIPOC community may have any expertise in, but they will have at least tried.
Yes.
We're not trying to water this down, but I think what we're really trying to say is we're looking for them to be intentional about wanting to go to the BIPOC community first.
And so when we're talking about 2 and 3, we're talking about not only the full spectrum, from goods and services and materials to contractors to people.
Yes.
Yes.
So is that correct?
Yes, even local restaurants. I mean, if they're construction, they have to go eat somewhere. So really go to the local community first. I've been a small business owner for over 32 years, and I've been hearing a lot, about, there's not enough qualified, minority-owned businesses, or we can't find the services, goods and services, and I just don't want. I'm tired of it. So I want a really good concerted effort from the prime to reach out to the community. Like I said, even with restaurants, when they order food, whether they go to lunch or they have a company event, they can go to a local restaurant and order food, and not supporting the local businesses.
Okay. Katie, did you capture that?
Yes, I kept a couple notes in here as well as written, a little fashioned way.
Oh, okay. Great. Number 4, take a second or two to read that. And I would say probably look at number 5 also.
So again, Andre, our goal is to take these statements as they are, and later we will be more granular?
No, the idea is, if what can we, yes, we're going to get granular as we go forward, but I want to make sure it's, when you're, from your standpoint, is it meeting the intent that you thought this says? So
Yeah.
Are there carrots and sticks for the CMGC around not meeting expectations, including when they do not meet the contract goals, and specific penalties, and number 5 are accountability measures and tools available to the COAC, including contractual obligations. So
yeah, from my perspective, that's the heart of the matter right there in 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Are they?
Go ahead, Christine.
I'm sorry, I'm not up on it if it's already in their contract. So are they going to be giving specific goals to meet and a timeline for the deliverables on some of these things? Number 1, is it going to be very specific so that it's measurable, so we can then deal with 4 and 5? Because I'm not quite sure how we're going to measure this with rewards and penalties if it's not the deliverables or the key performance indicators aren't specific enough to be able to do this.
So the contract has, in terms of the DBE goal, it has a goal setting goal, and we've talked about that before. The range of was it 18 to 21% or something like that. So that there's a range, but we'll be setting a specific hard goal for the contractor to meet. And then go ahead.
So this is specifically for DBE goals then, 4
yes,
and 5, because it doesn't say so.
There's a variety of goals in the contract for the contractor. Yeah. So mm-hmm. There's not only the DBE goal, there's an apprenticeship goal, and then there's aspirational targets around minority males and minority female journey and minority male and female apprentices. Mm-hmm. There are not, and so we will track those and we will measure against each of those goals.
Okay.
If there's other things the contractor, you want them to do around that, if you want to measure how many local employees and contractors they're hiring, we certainly can do that. We have the data.
Mm-hmm. Good.
We have data, and that's really, at that point, this gets into what Group 2's doing a little bit, but the disaggregation of it's a DBE, but what is the ethnicity of those DBE individuals, and what is the ethnicity of the minority males, and what is the ethnicity of the females? You disaggregate that, and we can look at those, and if certain BIPOC populations are not being utilized, that gives the COAC an opportunity to talk to the contractor about how to meet those.
I like all those.
Johnny, I would like to kind of get into 5 a little bit. Mm-hmm. The purpose of 5 is to understand our capacity to perform and make a sustainable workforce with the community at hand, and also to understand how one might understand how to be treated, or because oftentimes with cultures we run into understandings, we misunderstandings, but didn't mean to do that, and to create sustainability inside a workforce and promote leadership is to understand communication and messaging that might take place that might be different just because of unfamiliarity of the cultures that you're working with. So to build capacity with them, oftentimes you have to have real ways of creating consistent success that can roll from this project to another project that may not be an ODOT project. So I think this question 5 or statement 5 is to to create a culture inside the construction industry and be able to make it sustainable. It's going to have to be at the level of understanding the community you're working with that you may not understand. And
are you talking about 6?
No, 5.
5.
5. Your goal, the statement is clear. It's an action to implement, create a new culture within the construction industry. That has a lot to do with understanding the community that's going to be, that hasn't been in the construction industry at a high level. It's not like 35% Latino activities. If you go to the African American communities, there's only probably 5 to 6% or less that have been in the construction industry. So there's a huge gap in there, and that's what from my understanding, that's what we're trying to get to, where we understand and create a sustainable, safe place for everybody to work.
Okay.
Am I wrong am I going the wrong direction with this?
No, you are. I think that's job site culture you're talking about, correct?
Yeah.
And that's number 6.
That's what it sounds like.
That's number 6.
Well, then so then you can look at 6 and know you'll need 6 in order to do 5.
Yeah. I think before we jump to 6, want to make sure that 4 and 5 are, you like where it is and you like where it's going, and it is meeting the intent of where you should be, where you think this, and you understand, as 5 is saying, that kind of the COAC obligation is to look at the tools that are provided and say, is the contractor doing well or not?
Mm-hmm.
Andre, if I could pop in for just a second.
Yes.
What I envision is that there will be a set of metrics, right, of a number of different things in the contract that need to be, as I've said to them before, like a dashboard of some sort. So it's clear both to the COAC and to the contractor and everybody else that on a regular basis, we're going to come back and look at where we are so that the metrics end up being similar to a report card. This is sort of a progress update, however often it gets taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get too granular, but I thought both 4 and 5 are so important to be able to say to the community, because 2 things to me are at work here. Number 1 is the ability to say to the community, we told you this, we said this, we promised that, and here's how we're doing on our promise, so that we begin to develop credibility with the community of which we do not have, or which ODOT does not have right now. The other part is that it really does create some teeth so that the contractor realizes that it's not just going to a meeting somewhere or what have you, and you're not succeeding or performing well, but that there are consequences and rewards, on the other hand, for situations that do work out well. Because what we want to see is this job force that develops around this to be able to do work not just here, but around the state.
Yes. And so I want to be clear, the COAC will be meeting monthly to look at a dashboard and actually granular data around the CMGC and all of their subcontractors' performance against all the goals.
That's excellent.
And the other committees talking about that disaggregation and how that looks. The issue here for us is there's not specific rewards in the contract there's not a carrot out there. I guess the carrot is they don't get kicked off the contract, but so that's a reward. The consequences are there are liquidated damages for not meeting the DBE goal. there are liquidated damages for not meeting the apprenticeship, and there are things that can happen to them if they're not meeting, you know, from that standpoint. We have 5 minutes.
Can I jump in here a little bit?
Yes.
Reverend, I was on it along with Andre. He was there too, but at the Multnomah County project that just happened and everything. And that dashboard that you're talking about and that data was there, that we saw at every meeting and was very helpful. And that needs to happen here. And as Andre just said, but I guess my question is, or my statement is, or my question is, who is going to enforce that? If they don't have enough apprentices, if they don't have enough minorities on the job, who's going to enforce that?
That is, well, first, it is, it starts at the COAC, and that's number 5. The COAC needs to, you know, ODOT's going to point out to the contractor they're not meeting the goal, but the COAC is, again, to point that out also. And the enforcement is, you know, the ODOT has a contractual responsibility for enforcement. But that process is, just like Bob was talking, is set up to be, ODOT will review, the owner's rep and the ODOT will review the results first with the contractor, excuse me, then come to COAC, and hopefully the contractor's got a solution to the problems they have. And then after that, you know, ODOT's going to go back to follow up, right? To say, you know, are you doing what you said? And then coming back next month and seeing how their solution is working, and monitor that along with you. But it's a process. We just need to get through a couple more here real quick, if I can. Just I want to touch on number 6, because I think it is, like Art said, connected.
Yeah, Andre, can I do this real quick on 4
Yes.
and 5? I think Bob's hit on a very important point, and I've been saying this all along. ODOT is in better shape over what's the word? Focusing on getting this right, so that it's not that whatever the issues are and deficiencies are and rewards are, we can talk about that later, need to be focused on by a person, so that when the COAC meets, the COAC is, somebody's already saying, here's where it's at, but here's what's going to happen. I'll shush now.
Yes, yes. And that's the intent. That is the intent.
Yeah.
Number 6, this job site culture. Yes, the CMGC is to implement a harassment-free zone. And whether that's green dot or something similar, I'm not sure what it is. There's a program actually in the spec that they have to implement, or something similar.
Yeah, I think it needs to be bigger than just green dot. The picture is that, you know, a lot of people don't know what gestures mean to others when there's multicultural people out on construction sites. It doesn't, at the end of the day, what people should know is that this is a no harassment zone of any sort. And also knowing how to properly communicate with others that are around you. And there needs to be a formalized way of communicating that's committed only to the construction industry, and limit the amount of exposure of failures. And that we can't go anywhere until this gets fixed out on the job sites. And it's not just, it ain't gonna, this won't get solved only on one project. This is a systemic problem across the construction industry.
It is, and there's a large, I'll just say this, there's a large group of contractors and organizations, over 200, and I think it's pushing 300 now, in the Portland area that are looking at this job site. So we need to leave. Who wants to talk about this right now? and kind of give an idea of what we were talking about.
And welcome back, everyone, from your small groups. We'll wait until folks are